Good morning to everybody in the US, in India, UK, and beyond. Welcome to the webinar From Hype to Real Impact. Is your AI strategy a revenue driver? We have seen a lot of AI news in the market right now. Recently concluded with the AI India Impact Summit. Before that, it was World Economic Forum. This live webinar is special because I have a brilliant guest, Heidi Cramer. She's an AI strategist, and I'm sure she'll have much more experience than what I can even explain. But she'll come in a second. What we plan to do with this webinar is to flip the script, like the topic suggests. There is a lot of hype about AI in the market. How do you cut through the noise and see proven plug-and-play strategies that can be implemented by SMBs and mid-market? Enterprises have all the budget in the world to implement the technologies. It's the SMBs and mid-market that fluctuate between transitions. So we'll talk about that. Thank you for joining. I'm your host, Ronak. Let's make this AI webinar an unfair advantage for you starting today. I remember my father, he's a small business owner in India. And he started in computers and internet back when in the early 2000s or late 90s. So he's an early adopter of the technology transformation. He's 65 now. He was 38, 40 back then. So I'm of a similar age. And I'm sure there are many people of similar age where the AI revolution is happening. So for him, he has been a heavy internet user in terms of only sending emails and only watching YouTube videos in the past 25 years, even though his work involves being on the internet and creating documents for legal purposes. Seeing him last 25 years on how he has adopted technology transformation, which is especially the internet, made me realize I am of the same age. How do we make sure we take care of this transformation, AI transformation? Because many people think they use the technology, but are they really using it? How far is their adoption gone? And especially for small business organizations, due to many issues, skills gap. You use AI today, but how efficient are you using it? Like internet revolution, AI revolution is similar. We are in an age where we have a lot of skill gap. People using AI but don't know how. You compromise trust and authenticity of the content because so much is AI content being created. And SMBs are the worst sufferers in this age. As of 2026, the global discourse on AI has shifted from if it will change the world to how fast and at what cost. Heidi, thank you and welcome and joining today's webinar. It'll be good to know from you. You work as AI strategist. You talk to SMBs all the time, various types of sectors, businesses. It would be good for you to explain what you do. What does AI mean to you? And how are you helping the current breed of people who wants to leverage it?
All right. So I come from years and years, as you know, of technology. Got the first decision sciences degree back in 1988. So the interesting thing that I saw with AI is back in 2019, we talk as if AI is another operating system or another SaaS are out there, right? And really what AI is just data. So it's data available. It's data for the first time that is consumable and available to everybody. So you started out with this and you said something perfect. You said, what's the difference if you have the money to implement, unlimited like enterprises do to implement AI into your processes versus small? So I would say, so right now I work with small businesses every single day on implementing AI. I do a lot of training, both online and in person for AI so that small businesses around the nation, actually mostly in the United States, can understand that AI actually democratizes. So for the first time, things that have only been available to enterprise are now available to all small businesses. So I'll give you an example. One of the groups that I have trained or have worked with is the Bar Association, our legal here in the US. And one of the interesting statistics is before AI, it was a 7-to-1. So you would have 7 associates for every 1 partner in a firm. We're already down to a 5-to-1 ratio, and that's laid right at the feet of AI. So we're already down to a 5-to-1 ratio laying at the feet of AI. And what has happened is for the first time, the power of information is available to smaller firms at the level that it was available to larger firms. So I just recently read an article that said that we've hit, and kind of interesting because we talk about workforce shift, that says that there is actually new billing hour limits that have been hit by top partners because they can now spin off into their own firms and specialize in very small areas. So
Right.
what we're watching with AI is these small businesses are actually more powerful if they're implementing it. The big question is, in a lot of cases, what I see is small businesses are trying to implement it like you would implement Microsoft, or like you choose Mac, right? Or maybe you choose a SaaS, maybe you
Right.
choose Salesforce or HubSpot, and it's a different world. Now, what really matters is, as a business, where is your data? What is your data that differentiates you? For instance, as a company, right? Is it your customer data? Is it your sales cycle data? Most importantly, is it your manufacturing data or your raw materials? And where do you get everything? And understand where that data is. And then use your mind. It's crazy because small businesses don't have a lack of imagination or innovation.
Yeah.
They just simply have a lack of implementation. And AI now gives them the implementation ability for all these ideas that you've had to
Right.
be able to say, okay, where is our data that gives us enough information? How do we use AI to build the system to actually bring that to market, bring that better information, bring that better way of doing things to market? And then how do we make sure we're staying on top of this, because it doesn't take us that long. We don't need programmers or developers. We just need to sit down and have a good long session with Claude,
Right.
as
Right.
an example.
No, of course. And I think, like I started the webinar by saying that SMBs and mid-market have an unfair advantage now. They are running in the same race as enterprise because there was, like you said, creativity is there. It's just the manpower or the resources they didn't have, which through AI, the gaps closed. I just have a statistic in mind. I was researching before this webinar, and in India, 76% of Indian SMBs are allocating 50% of their tech budget to AI. Is the highest rated globally. So, there is a heavy investment in AI by SMBs and mid market. But I think one thing I would want your views on is, I've often seen people talk about AI but fail in implementation. Where should they start? What are the low hanging fruits in the value chain that they can implement quickly and get the confidence to implement more AI use cases across the value chain in the sector they are in?
Yeah, that's excellent question. So the way I see AI is you need to look at it as a small business two different ways. It's automation or it's innovation. Now, innovation is what scales you up, right? Innovation is what brings new revenue in. It's what opens
Right.
new markets to you, right? Automation is what gives you efficiency, what drives efficiency. So let's look at I'm working with companies, and maybe probably an average of 100 to 150 employees, right? So how should you look at this with 150 employees? Well, what I'm seeing in implementation is often we're looking at it from just the efficiency with no idea how to incorporate the innovation in there, right? And so, you have to look at both sides of a company and say, of these 150 employees, it's not that I need to take that and make it 75 to cut my costs. As a small business, I need to take the 150 and scale it so I'm not a $200 million company anymore. I'm a $400 million company with these 150 people, right? With these same great people, now that I can tap into what they know of my industry and into their creativity. So here's how I see often implementation. So the interesting thing is we still use this term shadow IT, and I hate it in the age of AI. I just hate this term in the age of AI because you've got all of these people out here maybe running operations or maybe doing your field work. Let's say you're a construction company and you've got project managers. And they're using AI. They're writing emails. They're using it for project management. They're using it to talk through problem solving, right? They are using whatever version of AI or large language models that they are comfortable with. And that's happening every single day in your company. So the first thing is harness that power and get it across your whole company with a combination of training and tools, right? So, I love that you gave that statistic about 50% of the money is going for AI. Well, okay, so that takes it not being called shadow IT.
Yeah.
What they're really doing is actually funding for the entire company initiatives that are already working. You and I both know that they're working somewhere. Someone has already come up with a better way for transaction processing or a better way for project management. That tends to be automation, tends to lower your costs. It tends to make things flow more effectively. It makes it so you can do more with less. I had one company I worked with, pretty classic example. They have a CRM system, very standard SaaS CRM system, right? And but that CRM system also was used to go out and give them pricing to turn around and generate proposals. Well, the way the data went into the CRM system is the client would send an email or work with their account executive in person, and then all of that would be typed into a spreadsheet. But then when it got to the CRM required different spreadsheets to go out and ask for quotes.
Oh, okay.
So somebody would retype it into a different spreadsheet for the CRM to go push the quotes, right? So if you know anything about AI, you can see where that would obviously save significant amount of time, but most importantly, it's going to take your time to quote down, which is going to help you competitively.
Yeah.
So how did we redo that? We didn't go hire. There wasn't somebody from the outside. I sat down with the person who was re-entering the information into both the first spreadsheet from the account
Right.
managers and the second spreadsheet into the CRM because it needed different structures. And we worked with, first of all, getting the data immediately from the emails into the quote tool, right? And then sending the quote tool to the CRM and the CRM pulling the data to then put it in the different ways that were needed to go get the quotes from the different vendors.
Right.
So AI made all of that happen, and just that freed up 30 hours a week, right? So just that. So think about what 30 hours a week means to a SMB,
Right.
because that's 30 hours a week. You have additional revenue generation, right? Or that's 30 hours a week that you have more time to now evaluate these different vendor quotes so that you can bring back best in class into your client base and move yourself up in the market. So that's an example of how I see them doing automation. I don't want to ignore the innovation. I worked with another company and they were very focused on how to automate tasks. But what I was very concerned about is they were a manufacturing company. And what I was very worried about was if you're not also at the same time while you're automating the order process and the data coming in and out of the ERP, right? If you're not at the same time opening significant tools of creativity and kind of, as we know them, right? The AI LLM, the pro tools, the deep research tools. If you're not also opening those at the same time to your product development team, to your sales team, to your marketing team, right? If you're not opening those at the same time, then you're actually not moving that fast. You're actually not taking advantage of the democratization of innovation for an SMB. So one of the things I see is it is not one tool fits all. We tend to think that, okay, the company has to choose a tool.
Right.
That's not the case. It shouldn't be. You can't look at it like that.
Right.
The person with an outcome, and I don't even like to say jobs. I don't even like when people typed in prompts and describe what you're asking the LLM to be, because I think you should be putting in results that you need, because we're still working off of that old model of cogs in a wheel, and AI works on this model of results, right?
Right.
So when you're putting it in there, you're a project manager. They should probably be using a very different tool than a customer service person that's trying to get emails efficiently and responses done quickly, right? So speed and innovation are two very different things for SMBs.
Right. I mean, and I've not heard a better explanation of how to leverage AI genuinely, because what you spoke about, and again, AI stands for artificial intelligence, but also automation and innovation, if you look at it.
That's right, exactly. That's exactly right. I hadn't put it in the AI terms, but you're right. It's automation and innovation for SMBs.
Yeah. And one thing I did got stuck with me in that answer was we also what happened with Twitter when Elon Musk took over Twitter. He did both. He downsized the team, but he scaled the business. So what you said in terms of reducing the workforce, so companies shouldn't look at SMBs. Anyways, they don't have enough people. So they shouldn't look at reducing the workforce, but leveraging the same workforce and scaling the business. But Twitter is an example where Elon did both at the same time, and it's a different case study. But I genuinely feel it's the mindset shift, like you said. Instead of downsizing the team, upscale your business. Try creative ways. And the third thing you said is about integration. Um, Integration across processes. I was hearing uh, at AI Summit, I was hearing a well-known business person and speaker. He said, I think it was Sam Altman. He said,
Yes.
uh, you know, the job role is going to change. So what he meant by that is if it's an executive versus an HR manager versus an IT admin, those roles will dissolve now, because part of that work is will be done by AI. 5 years from now, we may not even have roles anymore. We may look at jobs in a very different manner than what we are looking at it today, and worried about job going away. Who knows? If the roles change, the work people do changes. There could be more jobs, or there could be less jobs. It's just so dynamic right now.
That's exactly right. And something that I use, because, I talk and train in this often, usually with specific vertical groups, right? And one of the things I say is, let's look at it this way. The Industrial Revolution happened in the late 1800s. That's when we created the world of work as we know it today, which is we all became cogs in a wheel, which is fine, so that the output could be greater than any one person. But we had to become cogs in a wheel to do that, right? Or we had to become pieces of the entire process. So that is actually, it's hard to remember. Obviously, it's hard to keep this in mind, but that's actually man-made. We decided that, we created that society and during the Industrial Revolution.
Right.
And so now, and look, there were a lot of hiccups back then. I'm from I'm from the Great Lakes area. And boy, the things that were dumped into the Great Lakes and there were some really bad things that happened in that transition. Now we're going through this transition, right?
Right.
And, and we have some questions about how we're going to be able to manage through this, from an environmental standpoint. We're getting there. That's moving faster than it certainly did back then.
Right.
But one of the things I say is before the Industrial Revolution, people's jobs were about outcome. It wasn't the same way we think of it today. A blacksmith was about specifically things for the horse, and what AI is not just for the horse. I'm sorry, it was specifically about iron work and all the variety of things that iron could do to make our lives different and better.
Yeah.
Now, I think we're actually, believe it or not, we're coming back to more naturally where humans are, right? And so where we are is it's about the creativity of our mind and our skills and being able to focus on what your skills and what your talents are, and then bring the world up because of that. And that also lines up with SMBs, because all of these small businesses could frankly become their own programmer. Do you need to go evaluate SaaS, or do you need to just know where your data is and develop the solution that you need to be better? And in 2 months, make that solution even better, right? And so we're coming. We're into a different world, and it's going to reform itself. But the irony is, even though it's very robotic focused, right, or very automated focused, it's going to reform ourselves more into the way we are as human beings.
Yeah.
I think naturally, and I think small businesses represent that more than anything. Because if you go
More than
back
anything.
and look at where before the Industrial Revolution, That's exactly what we were. A lot of small businesses. Now we've got the power of how to create these wheels and these things much bigger than us, and keep the innovative mindset of what an SMB is, and the way to, and I keep calling my term is micro vertical.
Yeah.
So, how do you really go down? Because I think we're in the world of micro verticals now. So I can become an absolute expert on one piece of how that wall gets aligned, right? And I'm the expert at that, and I love that, and I'm fascinated by development in that area.
Micro verticals, what you said, and how that can be leveraged. I know we have 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes left on this live webinar. I think one or couple of points that I would like to touch upon and get your views on is like we spoke about the value chain for an SMB. Um, from today's perspective, we know that any organization is made up of sales, marketing, finance, HR, talent, leadership, and IT, and other areas. But these are the primary ones. In your experience talking to SMBs, like how do you, like for example, if the first one is sales and marketing, what are the AI areas? What are the low hanging fruits where AI can be implemented? Like you said, automation, innovation. How can revenues be increased just by leveraging AI in this area?
Yeah, so revenue increase, which to me goes under innovation often, right? So one thing that I see that I work with a lot of people on is, and remember that I come from sales, right? So I've done years and years of professional sales, managing teams from 8 to 2,500. And so the first thing I say is, what's your close rate? What's your close rate in sales as an SMB? What do you think? How many leads, or how many do you turn into sales? What's the first thing you could do? How do you do that better? Well, first, let's look at this data, because think about this. If you're $100 million company and your close rate is 50%,
Yeah.
if you can raise that 50%, if you can raise your 50% close rate by 15%, then you have just added somewhere between 15 to $30 million. So
Yeah.
you have just gone up by 15 to 30% in your revenue without adding people, without doing anything. So the first thing to look at, and I love your lead gen piece on here, is your close rate. Who are you closing? How long is it taking? And how do you repeat that? But most importantly, of the 50%, I mean, you already have them entered into the sales process. They're already interested in your product. You don't have to go out here and generate interest.
Right.
There's a reason that they're interested, and a reason that they're not choosing you. So one of the cheapest, fastest, best ways you can do is have a combination of a team with AI do an evaluation. And it can be AI that's already built into a CRM, right? It can be doing nothing more than gathering the information from your sales or your inside sales team, or even your customer service team, and understand what this 50% we're not closing, what are their commonalities? So what are we missing, so that we can get maybe another 10% of those, or 15% of those, because that's a huge, and again, I'm only talking in US dollars when I say 100 million, but that's a huge difference for an SMB. And it just created both bottom line and top line for you, right?
Right.
Because I'm sure that all of your expenses are not fixed, or not incremental.
Right.
Some are fixed. It just doing that. And most people tend to think in terms of automating transactions. Agree 100%. Automating transactions is a fact, but that's already kind of here. And frankly, it's already in your software. You just need to get it turned on, right? But they think in terms of automating emails, or in terms of automating customer service, particularly with chatbots.
Right.
And so the crazy thing is, you can often get the biggest impact by evaluating who you're not selling to, but who's already interested in your product.
Right. Right. I mean, it's again really good insight. The second business function we talk about is finance and accounting. Uh, there is a lot of manual entry audits, like you have explained in the past about CRM manual entries. There is a lot of manual entries that were there. In your experience with SMBs, any use case that you have seen or how they should implement AI across finance and ops?
Yeah, cost center allocation. So the first thing you should do is look at how you're doing cost center allocation. And at SMBs, particularly when you're smaller, like when you're a micro business, they spend a lot of time allocating. I always joke about get your Friday afternoon back, because they spend a lot of time allocating costs and trying to make decisions. So make sure honestly, cost allocation does not need human intervention anymore. It needs just a couple things of training. So the first obvious thing that you can always do in finance is cost allocation. And then and then I gave you an example of operations. There's always in accounting, you
Yeah.
find duplicate entries and it's usually under the guise of a compliance. But
Yeah.
frankly, AI can handle your compliance problem and take away 90% of your duplicate entry. So often you see people doing a double check and you need to insert AI in that process and then just do maybe a human in the loop check.
Right.
Those are always the two things. And I have never seen it save less than 30% of their costs in transaction processing.
Right. I think the way this discussion is going, we could do 2 hours and still not be enough, because I barely covered anything in this session today.
Right. We just got started, right? Because there's so much
Yeah.
in depth and there's so much for SMBs here. There's no question.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is in 7 days, it'd be a different conversation because things are moving so fast.
Yeah.
There's even more things out there right now.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to go deep into each business process, but looking at the time, we can maybe plan another one later.
Yes.
But I think one thing I would um, want to ask or want to discuss is this is a big transformation that's happening with AI. There are various generations of people living in this world right now, like Gen Zs, millennials, Gen X, boomers, alpha, and now the new beta has come 2025 onwards. I have 2 kids, 6 and 4. So again, you've been part of a transformation in the past as well, internet transformation. How have you seen generations cope up, not just from a SMB's perspective, but in general? How have you seen those generations cope up? And what advice would you have, being in this industry for for so many years now, so many decades now, across generations?
Yeah. So the different generations, I will say, the interesting thing is the natural alignment is gaming and AI. So, for generations that spent, that just have these as their side. I actually remember years ago sitting in a boardroom trying to convince a bunch of board people that they would actually have this in their hand with their own phone number. That's how long I've been around. And so, but when I look at the generations, it's very natural for them to understand that they can just prompt and do things like solve dual
Yeah.
entry. One thing I think that everybody has to keep in mind that is very hard because we have not made this, AI has moved so fast that the support structure for SMB has not moved this fast. So they have their typical partners, which may be accounting and IT and, their licensed resellers or whatever that they're looking to help them implement IT. Well, the problem is we've done especially in generations, we still have generations that have this view of any technology as something that needs to be evaluated and then vetted and then security tightly understood. Now, security is important in here, but not in the same way.
Yeah.
And then we go through implementation. I mean, how many great ERP systems has everybody lived through that? Have pain, right? And so they have that. Like AI is something that has to be vetted and analyzed. And instead, the way the some of the generations are starting, I think, now to understand that it is not the same model, that it is very much about just the workflow and what's the result of what needs to get done, and just let whoever is sitting there do it. And whatever generation is sitting there, just let them make this better. because it's not going to risk your company. Like,
Right.
I think in many ways, our old models have done a disservice to the baby boomers and Gen X.
I do understand. Like I said, 2 kids. So I think about a lot because especially the influence, the biggest tech CEOs are saying world's going to change in 4 or 5 years. AGI will come soon. Elon says that nobody has to do work in 5, 7 years or 10 years from now. I see all countries coming out with their 2047 AI agendas and what they would implement AI by 2047. Um, I think I'm not worried. I just keep on thinking about how um, we should make the infrastructure and education system ready to upskill our people, upskill kids, the younger generation, because it'll be easier for the kids to adapt. It'll be difficult for the people like my age to make changes rapidly because we have half of our life has gone in work in terms of how we've been doing work. But after 5 years, things will rapidly change. So for us, we'll have to look at the world in a different way, and hence these kind of webinars or knowledge on AI without fear mongering or you know, without fearing about the future. I think it's very important to know what's happening. And with all the sources that are there in the market right now.
That's right. And one of the things I'm doing is getting a doctorate in education focused at AI and learning. And so the biggest shift that we didn't make fast enough because AI came on, but the
Yeah.
biggest shift is the education of our children into critical thinking and problem solving.
Right.
And not rote, not drill and skill. And unfortunately, particularly in the US, unfortunately, all of our systems have been designed around the drill and skill. And we have to redesign things. I'm doing some research in this, actually. We have to redesign things around critical thinking and problem solving,
Right.
and use AI to do that. And the curriculum and the way we've gone to market with the curriculum hasn't been able to move as fast to be more effective in AI. But I think we're going to get there quickly in the next 24 to 36 months.
Yeah, I plan to, because my older one is studying in school, so I plan to understand what she's studying, look at the curriculum, and then create my own ways of innovating their studies and at home. I've not started anything, but this is something I'm looking at. So once I have more time on my hand, I will start.
That's right. That's right. The only thing is so that you'll have to demand that they use AI to go above.
Yeah.
And that's what we see in the businesses. Same thing in SMB, right? The expectation should be, here are the tools, and we know that there'll be some trips, but the good news is with AI, you can get things focused and moving forward again. And it's exact same thing for SMBs. Exactly.
Yeah, I wish we had more time today, Heidi. I really enjoyed hearing your thoughts. Hopefully we can plan another webinar. There have been, I saw some listeners coming in, going out. I hope for all who joined, we could provide some value, if not everything. If you see the QR codes, if you want to reach out to Heidi or myself, feel free with all your questions. I hope we can we can do another webinar pretty much focused on the value chain itself. And then because it's so important it's not a trend anymore. AI is not a trend anymore. It's a necessity. So important to be with what's happening. Before we leave, any last words from you before we end this session?
No, thanks for the opportunity. And it's so much fun to figure this out, and to take away our old paradigms. And I'm just loving being a part of this. I've got to be part of one technological innovation after another. Live from mainframes to distributed computing to cloud computing and this. And I've never seen anything that can make such a big impact. So thanks for letting me talk through this a little bit.
Thank you, Heidi, and thanks to whoever who joined. Thank you so much for joining the webinar. See you shortly. Thank you.